Welcome back. So, we are moving to the final topic in the syllabus, chapter number 15, strategies for internationalizations. Actually, this was not in the previous syllabus, in the BBC syllabus, but this was there in the syllabus we had from 2005 to 2015. In that syllabus, this topic was there, but in the BBC subject, this topic was not there. So, we will look at about the content. So, here we are going to discuss about motives for internationalizations. What are the motives to go to the international market? Then what are the drivers for international market? Right? Drivers for international market. Then challenges of international market. Then we are going to discuss a Hofstede framework for understanding cultural differences. This model is used to get an understanding about different cultural background in different countries. Then we are going to discuss about Porter's diamond model. Porter's diamond model is helpful to get an understanding about the factors that has created competitive advantage for certain countries and the companies. Then we will discuss different model for evaluating international markets. Then we will discuss approaches to entering to new markets. Finally, we will cover appropriate mode for entering new markets. So, first of all, we will discuss motive for internationalizations. So, what are the factors that encourage you to go to the international market? Why we are now more prefer to go to international market? There are certain motivational factors that lead to go to international markets. What are the factors? The first one is customer. So, when you go to a global market, you can serve to customers in many countries. This is the number one reason actually you go to a global market, to cover more customer base. By covering more customer base, you can earn more income. As a result of that, you can earn more profit. The second reason is company. You want to go to the international market to obtain economics of scales. To get economic of scale, you want to go to international market. So, how you can get a economic of scale from this? When you are expanding your capacity with coverage of other countries, it will help you to get some cost savings. For example, in certain countries you may be able to get labor at a low cost. So, the capacity increase will help you to get more cost savings. Then the third one is competitions. Within the global market, we can identify so many players. Therefore, you need to go to the global market for a competitiveness purpose and the prestige purpose. For example, you want to compete with others and you want to defeat them and show that you are very powerful player in the world. That is one of the driving factor. Then fourth one is currency. So, when you are operating in many countries, exchange rate risk can be reduced. For example, if you are working only in one country, if the local currency is depreciated, then you are badly affected. But if you are operating in some other foreign countries, you will get money from foreign currencies. Therefore, right, you have managed the foreign currency risk to some extent through that. For example, think the number of high demanding currency like American dollars, sterling pound. If you are operating in country like USA, then you will be able to get lot of dollars. So that will reduce your risk to exchange rate risk. Then the fifth factor is country. So operating in multiple locations will enable a particular company to exploit both absolute and comparative advantage. I think you know the difference between absolute and comparative advantage. You have learned that one in economics. Then we will move to the topic number 2, drivers for internationalization of a business. So what are the drivers for internationalization of a business? These are some of the other factors that encourage globalization of world trade. So we look at about them also. First factor is financial factors. So one of the example is developing nation debt. Think about Sri Lanka for example. So we are facing heavy nation debt. When some of the foreign institutions give loan to Sri Lanka, right, they are the lenders, they need the borrowing countries to undertake some economic reforms as a condition of the loan. For example, World Bank, they put lot of condition on Sri Lanka. For example, they ask to encourage some export oriented businesses. Right. As a result of this, right, you want to go to the international market. Then another reason is country or contingent connections. For example, SAARC, the South Asian countries are bound together. So therefore, company in Sri Lanka want to go to the South Asian other countries. Then the third one is legal and regulatory factors. Legal and regulatory factors such as industrial standard and protection of intellectual property, which encourage the development and spread of standardized technology and design. So look at this, some of the industry standard and protection of intellectual property, where you need to develop and spread of standardized technology and designs. There are certain industry standards you want to meet. So what you do is you try to meet them, so that will help you to go to the global market in the future. So the fourth one is markets trading international commodities. Now in the foreign markets, right, there are many customers available. So you want to go to those market and sell the goods. Then the internet internet has helped companies to introduce online selling. This online platform help to access to customers in global marketplace. Government policy. In many countries, you want to control the balance of payment by discouraging import and encouraging export. That may be another reason to go to the international markets. For example, local company may be encouraged to sell more good to the foreign market to get foreign exchange. That will help to have a favorable balance of payment. Topic number 3, the challenges of international markets. It is not an easy task to operate in global markets. It will always create challenges. So, what are the challenges you will face when you are operating in global marketplace? One is political risk. Political risk. In global marketplace, sometimes you may find wars. That is political risk. Nationalizations. In certain countries, very difficult to sell products. They want to buy only the good from local players. Even some organization back in those views, very difficult. If there are some argument between government, it will create a lot of problems. For example, the argument going between China and American government these days, that creates some problem for sellers. Then business risk. What is this? Here the idea itself may not become successful in the world market. You want to go to the international market, but the idea you are selling with your product may not be a acceptable one in the global marketplace. So, you may try to offer a standard product, for example, to the global marketplace, but the requirement of the customer may be completely different what you have expected. Then the currency risk. The currency risk arise from the variation in foreign exchange rates. For example, suppose you are exporting good to the USA, suppose suddenly US dollar depreciated, so that badly affected to you. Then profit repatriation risk. Sometimes government action may reduce your profit potentials. For example, heavy import duties posted by that particular country government. So, that will reduce the profit potential for the organizations. With that introductions, we will move to the first model. We are going to discuss in relation to international marketplace, Hofstede framework. This Hofstede framework try to identify cultural barriers that may prevent a manager being successful when dealing with people in a different country. Therefore, this model is helpful to get an understanding about cross-cultural differences. Culture exists in countries are not the same. You can identify different cultures For example, culture exit in Sri Lanka is different from culture exit in USA. This Hofstede model identify 6 dimension What are the 6 dimensions identified? Power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long term orientation versus short term orientation, indulgence versus restraint. So, we will look at about each factor in details. This Hofstede framework was based on a research conducted within IBM, you know IBM company. Within IBM, you can identify more than 100,000 employees, right. This research actually covered more than 100,000 employees working around the world. Based on that, actually these 6 factors were identified. We will look at about each one. The first one is power distance. Here we look at about the degree to which power is distributed among the members within the society. There are certain countries where you can identify a large degree of power distance. There are some guys who are at the top, they have so many power with them. Then low level, there is another group who have very low power. If the power distance is too high, that means there is a huge gap between top level and the low level, for example, right. So, then the model you want to apply will be different from a low power distance model. For an example, if people respect to high power and there is a huge gap between the people in power, in that scenario it is beneficial to have bureaucratic structure. You can have bureaucratic structure. You know what is bureaucratic structure? Bureaucratic structure is backed by more formal policies and procedures. In there, people will have higher power distance. What do you think about Sri Lanka? Do we have higher power distance among the different people? Yes. If you look at Sri Lankan organization, you can find high power distance between higher level and the low levels. The higher people want to keep power, they want to get maintain their distance between themselves and the other layer. If there is a low power distance is available, that means there is no gap in power among the people in that particular society. You can use more platter organization culture. You can give more personal response to individual member and more independence, autonomy can be given to the members. If you look at about this index, China is having 80. That means in China there is a high power distance among the society members. There are some people who have high power, right. Sri Lanka also 80. 80 out of 100. That indicates Sri Lanka is also high power distance society. You can see there is a upper level group, they always maintain power within the society, at the same time in organization. These top people keep the power with them. They don't delegate that one to low level. They expect respect from the low level people. So the second factor, individualism versus collectivism. Here we mainly consider whether individualism is dominant over collectivism or not. Individualism means whether you are thinking too much about the individual persons in the society, or whether you are too much think about the society members when you take decisions. What do you think about Sri Lankan society? Are we more selfish people, think about individual, or are we more think about others when we are getting decisions? You will amaze in Sri Lanka this index number is 35. 35 mean individualism is not dominating. We are thinking more on the society aspects. What about the USA? USA, this ratio is 91. That clearly indicate they are more worried about the individual persons. They are not worried about the society when they take decisions. Sri Lanka is good now in that aspects. Then the third variable is masculinity versus femininity. Under this, we consider the differences in decision making. Masculinity side of this dimension represent preference in society for more achievement, heroism, assertiveness, and material reward for success. In this type of society is more competitive. පුරුෂයා ගත්තොත් එහෙම බොහොම powerful කෙනෙක් නේ. So he is more having more fighting attitude, no. So if you have this type of orientation, in there you are more competitive. In opposite, femininity stand for preference for cooperations, moderacy, caring for the weak and quality of life. කාන්තාව ගත්තොත් එහෙම නෙමේ, බොහොම සුහදව කටයුතු කරන කෙනෙක්, ආවේගශීලී කෙනෙක් නෙමෙයිනේ. Right? So if you have more femininity nature in the society, in there you are more consensus oriented. When you are taking decision, you discuss each other and take the decisions. If you are more masculinity oriented, in there you have more quantifiable goals and you try to achieve them. But if you are more femininity oriented, then you are more thinking about the happiness of the staff when you are making decisions. In UK, this ratio is 66. That means they are more masculinity oriented culture. In Sri Lanka, this ratio is 10. We are more femininity oriented culture. We always prefer to get decision in collective base. We are more think about the happiness of the staff within the organizations. Then the fourth factor is uncertainty avoidance index. Uncertainty avoidance index. Here we look at about the attitude to take risks. Whether we are ready to obtain risks or not. Two options can be identified. Low level of uncertainty avoidance. That means you are ready to accept the risks. In this type of culture, you can identify more entrepreneurial national cultures. Other option is higher level of uncertainty avoidance. You don't like to face uncertainty. You want to avoid that one. You are not expected to take risks. Right? This type of culture, you can identify more less entrepreneurial. What about this ratio? In South Korea, they are at the highest in this ratio. They have 85. That means they always prefer to take more risks. In Sri Lanka, 45. We are more low risk nation, we are not worrying to get much risk. Then the fifth factor is long term orientation versus short term orientations. Here we check whether we prefer to maintain the existing tradition and norms, right. If you prefer to maintain the existing tradition and norm without making some adjustment, in this orientation we are in low in the dimensions. If we are more prefer to take changes, that is more long term oriented. The cultures which have low orientation in that, they are traditional, they do not like to implement changes. Countries, they have high score in this aspect, they like to change their tradition and norms, and they are more focusing on the long term aspects. We look at about South Korea, they are experiencing the highest in this aspect, 100. South Korea 100. 100 indicate that they are ready to make changes, they are thinking about the long term. In Sri Lanka this is 45, we are more traditional oriented. Then sixth factor, indulgence versus restraint. Indulgence refers to the people preference for enjoying life and having fun. Restraint stand for, right, to adopt more strict social norms. China, this ratio is 24, that indicate Chinese people are more prefer to apply more strict social norm. In Sri Lanka this indicator is not available, value is not available within this particular indications. So with that we can complete that model, then we can move to the Porter's diamond model. So we can't forget Porter, no, again and again this guy is coming. Michael Porter's diamond model. Michael Porter identify 4 principal determinants of national competitive advantage. In this model, he tried to identify some factors that determine the competitive advantage of a particular nation. If these factors are available, that has led to obtain a competitive advantage for an organization. What are the 4 factors? Factor conditions, firm strategy, structure and rivalry, demand conditions, related and supporting industries. Right, we will look at about each factor. First of all, we will look at about the factor conditions. What is factor conditions? The factor conditions are countries' endowment of input to productions. Here actually we look at about the availability of the production factors, whether a particular country is having a particular production factor. If we are having a particular production factor more compared with the other factors, then we can specialize in industries where that particular production factor is required more. What are the example on production factors? Human resources, physical resources like land, mineral, climate, knowledge, scientific and technical know-how, educational institutions, capital, amount available for investment, how it is deployed, then infrastructure, transport, communication and housing. These are some of the factor conditions available. Think about Sri Lanka for example. What type of factors we have more? So we are a country which is having heavy labor resources. That's why we have specialized in some industries in global market, right, which use more labor. For example, garment industry. Look at the garment industry. In garment industry, we use labor more. Since we have more labor, we specialize in there. Look at about tea industry. We have required labor for tea industry. That's why we have specialized in there. When you look at about these factor conditions, Porter has identified two different factors, basic factors and advanced factors. Basic factors and advanced factors. What are basic factors? Basic factors are natural resources, climate, semi-skilled and non-skilled labor. They are inherent, or at best their creation involve little investment. These factors need little investment. For example, unskilled labor available, natural resources we have. What are the advanced factors? Advanced factors are associated with a well-developed scientific and technological infrastructure and include modern digital communication infrastructure, highly educated people like computer scientists, university research laboratories and so on. Country like Sri Lanka is lacking these advanced factors. No, we have more basic factors. Country like USA, Japan, they have more advanced factors. According to Porter, to get a competitive advantage, it is important to have more advanced factors. If you have more advanced factors, that helps you to get a competitive advantage. So as a nation, actually, this is one area actually we have to work out. We have to more focus on advanced factors that would help you to get a competitive advantage in the world markets. Then demand conditions in the home market. Demand condition in the home market also will help to get a competitive advantage. For an example, if there is a high demand for a particular product in the local market, that knowledge in treating local customers will help you to go to the global market and get the required success. So, we look at about some of the example related with this. The segmentation of the home market shape a firm's priority. Companies will be successfully global in segments which are similar to the home markets. And normally, if a company go to a global marketplace, they can get a better success in marketplaces which are similar to the condition in the home market. It's an obvious factor. Then another one is sophisticated and demanding buyer set standard. If the home market set high standard, achieving these high standard will put a firm in a strong position to be competitive on the international market. If in the local market, if you need higher standard, local customer demand higher standard, in that scenario you have to meet that one. So that meeting high standard will help you to go to global market and achieve the success. Then anticipation of buyer needs. If consumer needs are expressed in the home market earlier than in the world market, the firm benefit from experience. If home customers want to fulfill needs before others identify in the world market, so you will first treat this local market and get the experience. No? when then others have the same need, you can use that local market experience to treat that particular needs properly. Then the rate of growth, if the home market growth is very low, so that may not help you to apply new technology. If the home market growth is very high, then it will help you to apply new technology that will help you to go to global markets. Then early saturation of the home market, if early market demand is fulfilled, then you have to, you may think about to go to the global marketplace. Then the third factor, related and supporting industries. Compared to success in one industry is linked to success in related industries. Yes, if there are some related industries, right, and those industries are performing really well, that will lead to get a success in some other industries also. For example, we'll say in Sri Lanka, we'll say garment industry. There are some related industries, for example, fabric industry. So in Sri Lanka, fabric industry is performing really well. That has helped to get the success for the garment industry also in the world markets. Then the fourth factor is firm strategy, structure and rivalry. So normally nations are like to display competitive advantage industries that are culturally suited to their normal management practices and industrial structures. For example, say if you have hierarchical structures within the country, so if you go to foreign country where you can find, if you can find hierarchical structures where you can get the success. The strategy, the different countries have different time horizon. Funding needs and so forth. So your strategy should be matched with that. Then another one is domestic rivalry. Internally, if you have high competitions, that rivalry will help you to increase the level of you. So that will ultimately help you to go to global market and get the required success. For example, Japan. In Japan, you can find so many car manufacturers. They have huge competitions. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Suzuki, Mitsubishi, all are Japanese name, no? They have high competitions that they increase the quality of domestic car companies. So that become a competitive advantage for the Japan as a nation in car industry. Right, if I take example to illustrate this, if I take Germany as an example, what do you think about Germany? So when I say Germany, what comes into your mind? You automatically think about the technology. They are really good in technology aspects. You look at about car market, for example, they have the world best safety vehicles like BMW, right? So Audi, it's a very popular vehicle in the world market. What are the factors, conditions that help them to have a good technology? If you look at a country like Germany, they have highest number of engineers for populations. If you take the population, if you average the number of engineers they have, compare with the other countries in the world, they have best engineers, right? They have more engineers. That has helped them to come up with more advanced technologies. So they have more advanced factors. This engineers help them to come up with more advanced technological products. Whatever demand condition in the home market, if I take this car example, in Germany, right, there are no safety standard. There is no limit on car speed. At the same time, right, people look at about more safety vehicles. See, that requirement of the country has led them to make some cars via very good in safety aspects. At the same time, the speed of car also very high. If you look at about Audi, if you look at about Mercedes Benz, if you look at about BMW, all these vehicles are good with safety standard. And if you look at about the speed of them also, you can pass 200 mark very easily in these vehicles. In Germany, you have related and supporting industries. For example, steel. Steel industry is really good in Germany, right? Those are helpful for car manufacturing. If you look at about Germany, within the country there is a high rivalry among the car manufacturers. BMW, Audi, Mercedes Benz, they have a high competition that has helped them to increase the standard of them. Then I am moving to topic number 6, evaluating international markets. If you look at the international markets, they are very complex dynamic environment. This environment is very difficult to understand, and they are changing rapidly also. Therefore, before entering a new market, an organization will need to carry out extensive research to assess whether the target market is likely to prove profitable. So, you can use two main models to evaluate the viability of different markets. One is cage framework, other one is 12C framework. First of all, we will discuss about the cage framework. So, when you go to a foreign market, you want to identify the difference between home market and the target country markets, and those differences should be taken into account when you are designing strategy. This cage framework help to identify range of issues that an organization need to address when approaching the international markets. Here it try to identify some differences that may exist between the home market and the target markets. This model has identified 4 areas where differences can be identified. What are the 4 areas? First one cultural, second one administrative, third one geographic, fourth one economic. Under cultural differences, we look at about the social differences that exist between the two countries. To identify the social differences, you can use this Hofstede model. By using that one, you can identify some differences. We have already discussed that model. Then the other one is administrative distance. This addresses the legal and political association between the two countries. For example, you may identify some differences among the laws and regulations. For example, if you go to UK, right, you may find some of the principle of English law that might be more convenient for Sri Lankan organization. The third one is geographic distance. This address the physical aspect of distance between two countries. Think about Sri Lanka and USA. What do you think about the distance? Is it very close, Clancy? No, distance is too much. No, you have to think twice before you go to the US market. What about Sri Lanka and India? Oh, Sri Lanka and Maldives. The distance is very low. No, we may be very happy to go to such a country. No. Then economic distance. What is economic distance? In there we are going to look at about some differences exist between these two countries in economic variable. For example, income, purchasing power, disposable income. We have to see whether the country target is having enough income to spend. Then we can move to the next model, 12C framework. This 12C framework is similar to the CRAGE framework. This also try to evaluate whether the target country could be a profitable market for the company. Here we use the word 12C because we identify 12 factors that should be considered, and each factor start from the C letter. That's why this is called as 12C model. Right, we'll look at about each model. So each factor, first one is country. So we have to look at about the size and the growth rate of the populations, whether this country is having so many people, what about the GDP growth rate, whether it is attractive, what about the stability of the government, whether we can find stable government, whether this country is free from any internal conflicts, what about the relationship of this country with other neighbors, right? Does it normally deal with other countries? Those are some of the factors you have to consider. Then the second one is concentrations. In there we check whether population is spread out or are people clustered around a small number of cities. If people are spread out, it's very difficult to cater to that particular market. If people are staying in a concentrated area, then much easier to capitalize that particular opportunity. Then third one, culture. We look at the culture people is having. For example, whether they want to spend the money, whether they have a fund-based culture, no savings for the future, or do they think about future, do they want to save money. Then post C is choices. We look at about the different products available within that foreign country, whether they have opportunity to access a lot of brand in similar products. If they have very limited brand, then that will be a good opportunity for us to go there. Then fifth one is consumption. We can check whether they would like to spend money on jewelry, clothes, car, books, CDs, right? If so, what the percentage they spend on those things, right? What about they are spending on some other product? Spending pattern will be evaluated. In certain cultures, for example, say Tamil based cultures, they prefer to buy more jewelries, no, right. Then sixth one, contractual obligations. You have to look at about what are the legal requirements you have to adhere when you go to that foreign country. For example, registration process, whether it is harsh one. Then number 7, commitment. Here India will check whether it is very easy to set up the operation or whether it is difficult to set up the operation in India. Right. Then channels. So what about the infrastructure like in the target country? Do they have traditional channel to sell the products? Do they have internet based channels? Those are some of the points we have to think. Then communications, whether we can easily convey a message to a target market in the new country or not. The number 10, capacity to pay. India will consider how much your potential customers earn and whether that is likely to change in the near future. So what about the growth rate? Will there be a recession in near future? Right? Will government impose higher taxes? Right? So that will all affect to you. Then currency, whether it is easy to change your customer's currency, right, or not. For example, currency in the target market is a very volatile one that may be lead to losses in the short term. Therefore, you have to take some action to avoid that. For example, you can sign hedging agreement. Then the 12th one is caveat. What is caveat? So be aware that there may be specific issues that are not covered by the above headings but need to be taken into account. Discover other matters you have to consider. With that we can complete 12C model. Then we can move to topic number 7, approaches to entering new market. So here we are going to look at about some of the approaches. Approaches we can use to enter to new markets. So we can look at about the 2 approaches to enter to new markets: waterfall approach and shower approach. Here we are going to make a decision whether we are going to access to one country or whether we are going to access to so many countries simultaneously. So we will look at this. First of all, we look at waterfall approach. Under this waterfall strategy, we go to one country at a particular time. Right? We go to one country first, then after establishing ourselves, then only we think about going to the next markets. Right? So we enter to a particular marketplace, then we get the required experience. Then after establishing ourselves in that particular market, then we move to another marketplace. It's like a waterfall. This type of strategy is best suited for a company who offer long life cycle products or whose products are in the maturity phase. It is acceptable to choose foreign market that is very similar to a company's domestic one. It's a very simple approach. මේකන හොඳම දේ ඇත්තටම මොකද අනිත් එකේ රිස්ක් එක වැඩිනේ. අපි මොකද එක කන්ට්‍රි එකට ගිහිල්ලා ඒකේ බිස්නස් කරලා හොඳට එස්ටැබ්ලිෂ් වුණාට පස්සේ ඊට පස්සේ තමයි අපි වෙන කන්ට්‍රි එකට යන්නේ. එහෙමම ස්ටෙප් බයි ස්ටෙප් තමයි අපි දිගටම ගමන් කිරීම කරන්නේ. Then the shower strategy. What is shower strategy? Here we access to several markets simultaneously. In this type of approach, we can get a higher growth within short period of time. But this is a more risky strategy. This is more suitable for product with shorter life cycle or product which are in the induction and growth stage of the product life cycles. Because we don't have much time to stay now. Right, therefore, it's in a short life cycle product we don't have much time to stay. Better to go to so many market at a particular time. Right, simultaneous strategy is more appropriate in that scenario. Normally, it's better to apply price skimming strategy. You know what is price skimming strategy? In India, we normally charge a price premium from the customers. From that, we can get more profit. Then we are moving to topic number 8. That is our last topic. Ways of entering new markets. What are the options available to enter to new marketplace? We can identify 7 options to enter to new marketplace. So we look at about these options. First one is exporting option. This is very simple strategy, right? Here within the home country we produce the good, then we export that. This is the most easiest and cheapest strategy, right? So some of the party in the foreign country will purchase our product and they may distribute in the foreign country. And not only one party, there may be so many players, right, who get our product and sell it. Then the indirect export, India, our goods are sold abroad by other organizations who can offer great market knowledge. There are some established players in other countries, so they purchase our product, then they distribute. They use their local knowledge to try to establish the product in the foreign market. දැන් පළවෙනි එක එක්ස්පෝර්ට් කියලා කිව්වේ අපි මුකුත් කිසිම සම්බන්ධයක් නැහැ. කෙලිම බඩු ටික අපි රටට යවුවා එච්චරයි. එතකොට අපි වෙන කමිට්මන්ට් එකක් නැහැ. එතකොට ඒ රටේ එක එක්කෙනා බඩු විලදී ගැනීම තමයි කරන්නේ. ඉන්ඩිරෙක්ට් එක්ස්පෝර්ට් එකේදී මොකද වෙන්නේ? අපි කෙලින්ම යවන්නේ අර තෝරගත්ත කීප දෙනෙක් තමයි බඩු ටික දෙන්නේ. එතකොට ඒ තමයි ඒ මාකට් එකේ ස්පෙෂලිස්ට්ලා ඒ තමයි බඩු ටික විකුණන්නේ. Then direct export, this direct export occur where the producing organization itself perform the export task rather than using an intermediary parties. India, the export task also done by ourselves. We are not getting the help of a third party. We are going to sell the product in the local market as well as the foreign market we are targeting. Right? Then overseas production, India. So what we are going to do? We are going to produce good in the overseas market, or right we get the help of overseas manufacturer. Then contract manufacturer, India, right? We give license to a third party in a foreign country to produce our good and sell. That avoid our cost of establishing those foreign markets. The number 6, joint venture. What is joint venture? So what you do is we establish a company, a new company with another foreign company. That means the local company in that foreign country. For example, Bharati Airtel, right. So, this Bharati, if you take this Bharati Airtel, actually Airtel has joint venture with Walmart, they had a joint venture. So, Walmart came into India, right, as a joint venture with the Indian Airtel company, right. There are certain countries, there are 100% direct investment is not allowed. For example, China, India, those countries, the only option is to find a local partner and start a company with them, joint venture for example, and do the business. Then the seventh option is wholly owned overseas productions. Wholly owned overseas productions. That means we are going to establish a company in the foreign country to produce the good, that is 100% owned by us. Or other option is you can acquire existing company, then through that existing company you can sell the products. Right. With that we can complete the topic number 15. Right. Topic number 15. So, I hope you get something from my presentations. So, I had a gigantic challenge to cover the whole syllabus within 20 hours. That is the target given for me, right. So, I had to explain the things in speedy manner, but I think this presentation may help you to get a summary idea about the syllabus. So, but this will not be the end, right. If you have any question, you can contact me, right. So, in the future I am expecting to have some right technological solution for students free of charge, right. For example, Zoom meeting, they can contact with me and get any consultation they need regarding the theory area where they have some questions. Not only that, I have a students group, there are around 12,000 students are there. You can join with that one, and through that also you can raise question. For example, in the Facebook, right, I have a group called Dimuthu Suranjana students, where also you can join and raise any questions. So, I am willing to help you at any time. So, as a member, right, at CA Sri Lanka, so our objective is to help students and get them get them into the track and help them to pass the exam. Then thank you very much for listening my whole sessions.